Good evening, gang. Purple and Gold podcast for Friday, January 30th. Happy weekend, everybody. It's going to be a frigid weekend here in South Louisiana. LSU baseball 14 days away. It won't feel like it this weekend weather-wise, but we're here today to talk about the expectations for the 2026 LSU baseball team, and I also want to touch on the schedule because I've got some really interesting thoughts on the schedule and what Jay Johnson has done. Starting next week, and as we get a little closer to the first game on February 13th, we'll talk infield, we'll talk position battles, we'll talk outfield, we'll talk starting pitching, we'll talk relief pitching. We'll do different sections of the team, and we'll talk about specific players. Today, I just want to kind of treetop what I think the expectations are. And, obviously LSU's won 2 of the last 3 national championships. They're 1 or 2 in all of the polls that have come out today. And D1 Baseball, who's pretty much the most trusted source on all of this stuff related to college baseball, released their SEC predictions today. LSU is predicted to win the SEC championship. Derek Curiel, is predicted to win the SEC Player of the Year. The SEC championship has eluded LSU since 2017, I believe, and obviously it's eluded Jay Johnson in his 4 years here. No one cares because LSU's won 2 of the last 3 national championships. Last year, Texas kind of ran away with the SEC. LSU finished in 3rd, but they were 3 games back. It would be nice to see if LSU could ultimately win out and win the SEC regular season championship. Obviously, the expectation is that LSU will be a top 8 national seed and play their postseason baseball at Alex Box Stadium. They've got the team to do it. They've got the depth to do it. They've got enough returning. They brought in enough. That is the expectation. LSU has never been to Omaha without playing all of their postseason baseball at Alex Box Stadium. They have gone on the road and won a regional. They did that most recently in Palminares last year when they went to Eugene and won the Oregon regional, but they did not beat Tennessee in that super. They've lost road super regionals at Alabama, at Rice. They've never, like I said, never been to they've never been to Omaha in this current format, playing on the road. In 1987 and 1989, they did win road regionals before there were super regionals and get to Omaha. But in this current format, the super regional era, which started in 1999, LSU's never been to Omaha by having to take a path through the road. That really is the baseline, I think, of the expectations, is that you will finish in the top 8. You will be a national seed. You will play all your games at home. And I honestly think, you never know how a season's going to go, and you never know all of the twists and turns that a season is going to take. But if you would assume a relative amount of health, I would say that a super regional, would obviously be the floor expectation. Now, look, we saw 4, I believe it was 4 number 1 seeds get beat on the first Friday of regional play last year. We saw Texas lose a regional. We saw the number 1 and 2 teams last year in the preseason poll, Texas A&M and Virginia, not even make the NCAA tournament. So all of that is to say, you don't roll the helmet out there, you don't roll the baseball out there and just expect that you have to go win these games, and you have to go do the things necessary throughout the course of a season to win. Now let's talk about LSU's schedule for a little bit, because this is very, very interesting to me, and I know I'm a nerd about schedules and sports and LSU and the places they play and the teams they play. Obviously, LSU, the SEC part of the schedule takes care of itself, right? So many of the teams are ranked. I believe, LSU plays 5 teams that are, on the SEC schedule that are ranked in the preseason top 15. that part takes care of itself. No matter who you really get schedule-wise in the SEC, you're not going to be light, or you're not going to be you could be incredibly heavy, but more than likely it's going to work out. And LSU has one back-to-back SEC road situation in April. I believe they play Tennessee and Ole Miss back-to-back on the road. But other than that, the schedule's pretty even. You end at Georgia, you open on the road at Vanderbilt, but you do get Oklahoma at home. You get Texas A&M at home. So the SEC part of the schedule is they should be able to navigate that in the normal fashion to hopefully finish, somewhere in that 18, 19, 20, and 10 type range. The non-conference schedule is interesting. So normally LSU plays one weekend at one of these peak events tournaments, and they are doing that again this year. But unlike the last, 6 or 7 years, it is actually not in Texas. It is in Jacksonville, Florida. So the second weekend of the year, LSU will play Indiana from the Big Ten, Notre Dame from the ACC, and Central Florida from the Big 12. So that'll be interesting. LSU opens with Milwaukee in a 3-game series. Now, Milwaukee has one of the best pitchers in the country. So whether he pitches on Friday or whether they would maybe save him for Saturday, right off the bat, that makes that series a little tougher than the average fan would think on paper in terms of, what you think Milwaukee is. And after they play Milwaukee in those 3 games, they actually play Kent State on Monday, the 16th. And Kent State is traditionally a very good mid-major college baseball team. So that'll be interesting because you'll play your whole weekend series. You will burn your presumable 3 starters, probably Kason Evans, Cooper Moore, and William Schmidt. We'll talk about that if those names don't mean anything to you yet. And then you have to play another game. Then they play in Jacksonville the second week. The third week is very interesting. So they play Dartmouth on Friday, Northeastern on Saturday, Dartmouth on Sunday, and Northeastern on Monday. For those of you who don't know, Northeastern is the premier team in their conference. They are generally one of the top mid-major teams in all of college baseball, generally one of the, if not the class of the Northeast, along with UConn. And they did not win their conference last year, and I believe they were one of the teams that was sort of snubbed out of the NCAA tournament. But that traditionally is not the kind of team you see at Alex Box Stadium. And then the following weekend, LSU plays a 3-game series against Sacramento State, who was in the NCAA tournament last year, and that is definitely not the kind of team that LSU has played in recent vintage. Now you may ask, Rob, why are they playing these teams? Well, there's a couple of answers there. One is Jay Johnson has revealed that last year they had lined up to play a schedule, and in the months leading up to the season, 2 teams canceled on them. He wouldn't reveal who those teams were, but one of them was a season opening series, and they had a new coach. And the coach just called Jay Johnson and said, I don't want to start 0-3. So LSU wound up playing Purdue Fort Wayne, who was a very bad baseball team. I don't know who they replaced the second cancellation with. That's unclear. But I think what Jay may have been going for this year was more stability in looking at scheduling teams. Because look, I know I said what I said about Kent State. I know I said what I said about Northeastern. And I know I said what I said about Sacramento State. I don't claim to know what those teams have returning. I know they've traditionally been good. You would expect them to be good again in their respective conferences. I don't want to make this out like LSU's playing the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, and the Cubs. But this is above and beyond what LSU normally plays because they're still playing the Louisiana teams, still have a road game at Lafayette, still have all the SEC games like we talked about. All these Louisiana teams, come to Alex Box in the midweek. And let's face it, that's a World Series for a lot of those teams. LSU always gets, 1 or 2 or 3 people's best shot in those midweek games. Traditionally, lately under Jay Johnson, those haven't been as much of a problem as they maybe were in the latter part of Paul Mainieri's tenure. So all of that is to say that it's a very challenging schedule, and I would not be surprised if LSU actually lost a few more games in the non-conference than they normally do. And I think it will be important for all of us as fans and people who watch the team to not panic. I know everybody has a tendency to panic in the non-conference, panic over every midweek loss. I will caution you that, LSU lost a baseball game on a Saturday last year to Omaha. And then LSU ran off 19 wins in a row. So those things happen in baseball. If you look at the game against Milwaukee, who the ace kid will pitch, Kent State, the 2 against Northeastern, the 3 in Jacksonville, the 3 against Sacramento State. They also play Creighton. Comes here on a Tuesday in the midweek because Creighton's going to go play Tulane on a weekend series. If you look at those 11 games, if I told you LSU went like 8-3, maybe even possibly 7-4 in those 11 games, it would not be impossible. Now look, I still think LSU is going to be fine. I still think LSU is going to win the vast majority of their non-league games. And we'll get into a record prediction piece and an SEC prediction piece down the road. I just wanted to point out that this is an impressive schedule, though, and it's not impressive to people who don't know the deep dive on college baseball. So that'll do it for today. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Please try to stay warm, like, share this around on social media. If you're watching it on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you know other people who you think would like to subscribe, please send it to them. Send the YouTube link to them and have them subscribe. And we'll be back on Monday. LSU and South Carolina in men's basketball tomorrow, noon Central. That game was moved up from 5 p.m. And the women's basketball team plays at home against Alabama. I assume, weather permitting, assuming Alabama Lady Crimson Tide can get here. They play at 11 a.m. Central on Sunday. I will be hunkered down in the Tiger Den all weekend. This host does not do frigid temps. Everybody have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay warm. I hope everybody's homes and power and everything stays good. And we'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Purple and Gold podcast. And we'll do deeper dives into the baseball team. As always, be good to one another. And always, 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 go Tigers.